Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
You're listening to the Roaring Repeater podcast on 7220sports.com. Here's Cody.
All right, guys, today we're joined by Robbie General, the Ball State beat writer at the Star Press in Muncie, Indiana. Robbie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Just wrapped up another practice. We got high school preview week here, so it's been a busy week, but I'm doing all right. So
I've driven through Muncie, Indiana. What is Muncie, Indiana known for aside from Ball State University?
It used to be a big industrial town, just like with automotives, and that hasn't been the case for a few decades now.
Yeah.
But outside of that, if I were to give kind of a funny answer, probably fast food. We've got probably on one road, we got probably every fast food joint known to man, which is the most bizarre thing. But yeah, Muncie's kind of weird. It's kind of tucked away off the highway there, coming up from Indianapolis. It's about like 15, 20 minutes off the highway, so it's in this obscure little spot. But yeah.
Have you ever been to Laramie, Wyoming, and how excited are you to come to Laramie, Wyoming?
I have not been to Laramie, Wyoming, and I don't know if I will or not. I don't know if the company's going to pay for it or not. But I've been to Wyoming before as a kid. Just kind of we hit up all those middle states there, the Dakotas and stuff, and did some hiking.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've never really kind of stayed. I think the only place I stayed in was Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So.
Okay. Yeah, and any Wyoming person will tell you Jackson Hole's not really Wyoming.
Yeah, very vacation-y. Yeah, I got that sense. Very touristy. So.
So if you don't get to come to Wyoming, do you get to go to week 2 in Happy Valley at Penn State?
I'm not sure yet. I kind of got thrust into this role probably 2 weeks ago now because the Jordan Gusky, who was the beat writer, is now over at Kansas. He's in the process of moving over there.
Sure.
So I'm gonna work through all that. Right now, it's been just kind of trying to stay afloat as a one-man band here at the paper. So
there you go. I've been there, my friend.
I'm still getting all the travel stuff figured out here relatively soon.
I hear you. I've been there many times. Well, you were around at least. I saw that you're a Ball State grad too, and you were around last fall. Obviously, the Cardinals, they dropped the opener 38-31 at Miami of Ohio. Then they reel off 7 straight, including a MAC title over Buffalo, and then a dominating performance, 34-13 win over San Jose State in the Arizona Bowl, and of course the Spartans won the Mountain West last year. First bowl win in program history. What was that ride like, even from the outside looking in? And I assume Muncie was buzzing for this team.
Oh yeah, and it was. I mean, of course, it happened the year where no one was in the stadium.
Sure.
Of course, all it happened. You didn't get to see the packed crowds that might have came with it. Like you did when Ball State went undefeated in the regular season, probably about a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it was exciting, and for me, being a Ball State grad, I covered the team for at least full time for at least 2 years when I wasn't the editor at the student newspaper there, and there was a lot of tough days. I always think back to that 2017 year where you can only get so creative writing about. Frankly, just Ball State getting dominated week in, week out. It was tough. But those guys stuck through it, and it was cool to see, a lot of that team, a large contingent of that team at least, those were guys who had been through the struggle. So it was cool. It was gratifying to kind of see them overcome it. And, over the years, I feel like Ball State was that team that couldn't find a way to win those close games. And last year, it's not like they dominated through the MAC. There was a lot of close games in there, but they found a way to get it done, which was definitely cool to see.
This year, of course, 85% of the roster is coming back. 16 super seniors deciding to stick around. That coupled with that bowl win, optimism has to be sky high around this program. No?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I'm trying to cover and preview different position groups, and the mentality is all the same. It's not like there's. You lose a Caleb Huntley in the backfield, you lose an Antonio Phillips in the secondary, and then you lose Antoine Davis at wideout. And then outside of that, it's pretty much the same exact team that made that run last year, along with the addition of 7 transfers and some younger guys that are vying for playing time. But yeah, fall camp has been, it's been probably the most optimistic I've seen it, and I haven't covered them as closely the last 2 years. And I don't even think we were able to go to practices last year with COVID and everything. But
Sure.
Yeah, optimism sky high. Those guys. The message all fall has been, they came back for one thing and one thing only, and that's to try to repeat what they did last year.
Yeah. Pretty incredible run by that team. And obviously it all starts with Drew Plitt, the 3-year starter under center there for the Cardinals. He's thrown for more than 6,500 career yards, 50 touchdowns. How good is this kid?
Yeah, and it's cool because I feel like he's really kind of grown, too, into that role, and maybe a little more inconsistent, and you saw some shakiness there in that week 1 loss to Miami last year. But man, he's just grown into the position, and I was out of practice today, and the coaches always give you the 2-minute drill and kind of set it up, and he was the one kind of pulling the ones together and setting up and screaming across the field, and he's been really good, but he's also had a lot of good pieces to kind of get him to where he's at. So it's been cool to see him kind of grow as a leader.
Speaking of a couple of his targets, his 2 top targets on the outside are back this year, Justin Hall and Johannes Tyler. Safe to say the Cardinals are not going to be afraid to put the ball up a lot this fall, huh?
Oh, no, not. Yeah, I'm guessing not at all. They relied heavily on that passing game last year. Caleb Huntley had almost 500 yards in the first 3 games, and then he goes down with injury, and then decides not to come back, and he's on the Atlanta Falcons roster right now. So that was the reason for that. But yeah, they got a lot of talented guys, not super big guys. Johannes is a little bigger. Jalen McGoy, and another wide receiver who's looking to kind of have a breakout year, is a little bigger. And then Justin Hall, he's just a speedster. Just reminds me of some of those NFL gadget players that can kind of do everything. Mm-hmm. He was a top receiver, and they're not afraid to run him out of sweep plays in the backfield too. So I don't think this offense is planning on taking any steps back. That's for sure.
We are talking to Robbie General, Ball State beat writer at the Star Press in Muncie, Indiana. The other big part of this offense that's coming back, the entire offensive line. Of course, that's never a bad thing, but looking into these guys a little bit, Robbie, I'd noticed they did give up 29 sacks last year and 50 tackles for loss. Is that a concern for Mike New at all, or does he think this group's just going to keep getting better?
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I think there was some injury stuff too. Some guys rotating in and out. Obviously, you hope they kind of stay healthy. And listen, Ball State wasn't. They were a team that put up a lot of points. Was in a lot of high scoring games. So, I think you look on paper, that's definitely a concern. But just bringing back that experience. I think it's huge. You got 2 local guys in that offensive line, too, who are kind of playing in their hometown as well. Mm-hmm. I think they're just kind of looking to grow and get even better this year. That's one of the position groups that, New's been highlighting as one of the strong points, obviously, because it's not often you get back all 5 offensive linemen. We'll see if the sack number goes down. Obviously, there's more games this year than last year.
Yeah.
But they found a way to get it done, and they made enough explosive plays on both sides of the ball to find ways to win games.
Definitely a +9 in the turnover margin. That's going to win you some games. I want to move to a guy on the defense, Brandon Martin, inside linebacker. He racked up about 4,000 tackles in 2020. This guy's a little disruptive, isn't he?
Yeah, he definitely is, and. I was concerned. Well, he was out of practice a little bit, but that's kind of just the mid fall camp. Mm-hmm. Where guys are going hard and holding out. He was back out there today, and he was flying around. Big guy, super athletic. leader of that defense, an all-MAC guy last year. He's a force to be reckoned with, and I think a lot of that success too comes just with the defensive line and kind of opening up those holes. And on paper, that defensive line group doesn't look like the most dominant. They're not in the backfield every play, but I think they've been a big reason. They only play 3 down on defense, and they've been a big reason that it's been able to open up plays for guys like Martin and Anthony Ekpe and some of those other linebackers as well.
So Ball State is returning 10 guys, and like you said, they run a 3-4 defense. All 4 linebackers are back. 2 of the front 3 are back, including a defensive end and the nose tackle. The linebacking core, the entire core is back. The entire secondary is back. This team had 17 takeaways in just 8 games last year. Who should Wyoming fans keep an eye on that defense aside from Brandon Martin?
Yeah, I think on from the linebackers' perspective, I think Anthony Ekpe is a big one. I wrote a story about him kind of this fall. It's funny, they had him last camp. He was a graduate, he was a transfer, and had him last fall trying out at that inside linebacker role. And then out of a hunch, they're like, let's try him out outside, and then he burns the tackle the first play and gets to the quarterback, and from then on out, the defensive coordinator Tyler Stockton's like, this is going to be a guy we're going to rely on heavily. He's a force. Bryce Cosby's a force there at safety. He's a really, really good player, really confident player, really mature as well. And then AJ Uzodinma at corner. He's just kind of a big play waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it was him or someone else. There's about a 10-year stretch there where Ball State hadn't returned an interception for a touchdown. Over the years, they have not been known for their defense, and I think this group kind of takes that personally. And last year, they kind of became known for that, that defense and that secondary. And it's not like they held opposing offenses to 200 passing yards. They gave up the passing yards, but I think, and from talking to them this fall, their focus is they don't care as much about the passing yardage that they give up. They care about the points against, and if you happen to get into the red zone, they're going to do whatever they can to try to find a way to limit you to 3 points as opposed to 7, which is huge when you have a team that scored at the rate Ball State did last year. And I think, in my mind, I think the biggest group is this defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Keith McKenzie, and obviously they bring back their 3 starters. They bring back a transfer, or they bring a transfer in Jonathan Ward, a VMI guy, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. And then they have younger guys who are just rotating in. It's not like when I go to practice, it's like these are the 3 starters,
Right.
And Kenzie said it. He said, we're just going to sub these guys in and out. And they've got about 8 or 9 guys who could all probably be starters on that defensive line. And they're just kind of rotating in and out, and they're staying fresh. And I think that's going to cause problems for a lot of offensive line groups. If these guys stay healthy and all play up to their potential, it's hard to stop 3 different groups of guys who vary in height and weight and the way they attack you. It's a hard line to prepare for, and I think they're going to cause some havoc there from that spot.
Yeah, that's a luxury when you have 85% of your roster coming back for sure. So Cowboys absolutely have that as well in spades. So we all think that, around here thinking this is going to be a really fun game. I think a lot of people, too, are happy this game is going to be played in Laramie. Of course, Wyoming was supposed to play in Muncie last year, and who and what took that away. So Robbie, obviously tough schedule to start things out for these guys. Aside from, the opener against Western Illinois at home, they travel to Penn State. They travel to Laramie to play in the, the highest elevation in the country after they just got done playing in front of 100,000 plus in Happy Valley. But the biggest one is probably Toledo, September 25th, right? Toledo's been kind of a popular pick to also contend in the MAC, and they are returning even more guys. I believe they're leading the country with 98% of their roster returning. How big is that Toledo game?
Yeah, and pull up their roster real quick. That Toledo game, that's always a big one. And I think Ball State kind of has the luxury that they get to play that at home. And I believe that's the second home game of the year.
Yep.
So, the hope is, you get some of those fans that have been building up to try to get out there for that family weekend game. But that's always a big game. And Toledo, for the past couple of years, has always been a force in the MAC. But, I mean, there's so many of those games. And I think, people tend to I don't know if they tend to forget or just choose not to remember that, Ball State played in a lot of close games last year. There was the Eastern Michigan one-score game. There's the Northern Illinois. There's the Toledo three-point game. Western Michigan, 3-point game. And there's last year, it was more so than most. You kind of had to be perfect to play in the MAC championship game, just because that's your whole schedule, and there's really no chance for a down week outside of week one where Ball State let that one slip. But yeah, that Toledo one, it's always huge, and if memory serves, that's always kind of one of those high scoring games. And I don't anticipate anything different this year.
Who, for those of us who don't know, which is me, who is Ball State's biggest rival?
I would say Northern Illinois.
Okay.
I think I think that's the Bronze Stock Trophy game. And it wasn't much of a rivalry for a number of years until Ball State kind of broke through in 2019. I think that was the first time they had beaten them in probably a decade or so. If I'm not, I could be wrong off the top of my head, but that's probably the big one. You got the traveling trophy, and I remember the atmosphere after that game. They went out to DeKalb and took that game and got the trophy back. And it was funny. I was talking to Bryce Cosby about that game, safety for the Cardinals, and he points back to that game as kind of the turning point that led to last season and the confidence, because Ball State had lost so many close games. I think just getting a win there really kind of gave them the confidence to say, why are we losing all these close games? Why can't we win some of them?
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it would make a lot of sense. And from what I remember for that game, it was a rainy day, and huge momentum boost. So I would say that's probably the number one rival.
Any chance that Ball State's good enough now that David Letterman shows up to a game?
I don't know. It's so funny too, because Letterman, he just kind of, you never know when he's going to be there. He was there. It was during COVID, so it was last summer, and I was actually on quarantine, so I couldn't even go out and see him. But he was there shooting one of the Peyton's Places things for ESPN. And then I remember when I was a senior in college, which would have been 2017, 2018, I was in the newsroom for our paper, and someone just texted, David Letterman's walking through, like, the Letterman building, which is named after him. So, he always finds a way to come back. I would not be shocked if he came back this year. He always comes back for the Indy 500 as well. He's a team owner, so Indiana guy through and through. But he just, I feel like he's a guy who pops up once in a while, and then he just disappears for like 6 months. So, maybe one of those big games. Maybe that Toledo game. That'd be or the homecoming game.
There you go.
They're playing a homecoming, but that might be a time where Letterman's just kind of walking around the tailgate lots.
Yeah, David Letterman, you're more than welcome to come to Laramie too for the Wyoming game if you want. Open invitation.
That's fun, but yeah.
Last one I have for you, Robbie. Where do you expect to see these Cardinals in the standings in late November?
That's a great question. I think if this defense plays up to their potential, and these guys stay healthy, and a couple of years ago that was a big problem for Ball State. It was the health, and I think if they stay healthy, I don't think there's a reason why they shouldn't be, atop the MAC standings and competing. I'm interested to see kind of the steps they take this year, because you really can't. I don't care how resilient you are, you really can't bank on all those like one-score games. Eventually,
right.
One of those, a play here or there happens and doesn't go your way, right? So I'll be interested to see, how they come out and play and play against some of these big teams, and if they go to Happy Valley and play well against Penn State, I think that'd be a huge confidence boost. But yeah, in my eyes, I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be atop the MAC standings. But that being said, there's a lot of teams that lost to them by a score last year who are going to have their number. So they're, as much as they want to try to be the underdog this year, they're no longer the underdog in the MAC, and that's going to be a new role for them, kind of being the favorites. And I'm excited to see kind of how that transpires as well, because Ball State has not been favored for a number of years.
Yeah, a little easier sometimes to be the hunter than the hunted. So,
Absolutely.
Guys, make sure to read Robbie's Ball State coverage over at thestarpress.com, and you can also follow him on Twitter at rgeneral, General Jr. Jr. Robbie, appreciate you joining us, my friend. I hope you have a great first year on the beat, and hopefully you make it over to Laramie and we'll grab a beer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to make it out. Big travel guy, so maybe I'll start throwing some nudges, my editor's way, and be like, hey, what can we do here? So
yeah, or you can get on David Letterman's plane.
yeah, maybe I'll just ask him, just for a donation or something.
Or maybe Papa John. He went there, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they might have disassociated with Papa John a little bit as well. So he's had some issues in the past couple of years.
Yes, he has. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Robbie. Hope you have a great first year, pal.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yep, you too.
That was Robbie General, Ball State beat writer at the Star Press in Muncie, Indiana. The Cardinals are a really good team. Drew Plitt is a really good quarterback. 6,500 yards through the air and 50 touchdowns in the last 3 years. That's pretty darn good. So he's got a lot of his weapons back. Of course, all 5 starting offensive linemen are back, 2 wide receivers. The defense is pretty much intact. So it's going to be a really good Ball State team. And like I mentioned before, I think a lot of people are pretty glad that this game is actually going to be in Laramie, because Ball State's no joke, folks. They didn't just accidentally win the MAC last year. They definitely have a ball-hawking defense, and the offense doesn't turn the ball over much. So that should be a really good game in Laramie. Of course, that one is going to take place September 18th at War Memorial Stadium. I believe it's 2 p.m. kickoff. So stay tuned later in this week. We're going to talk to the Yukon beat reporter and learn about the Huskies. We're going to get into the Mountain West. I'm not sure if we're going to do a single show for every Mountain West team. I think we know them well enough, but maybe we'll get a few of their beat writers on and talk about a few teams that the Cowboys will be seeing later on this fall. So until then,
Prescription products require completion of an online medication consultation with an independent healthcare provider through the LifeMD platform and are only available if prescribed. Subscription required. Individual results may vary. Additional restrictions apply. Read all warnings before using GLP-1s. Side effects may include a risk of thyroid C-cell tumors. Do not use GLP-1s if you or your family have a history of thyroid cancer.
If you've struggled for years to lose weight and have given up hope, did you know you can now access GLP-1 prescription medications at TryLifeMD.com? We're now offering eligible patients online access to GLP-1s, the breakthrough prescription medication that can help you lose body fat and weight. Listen to what people are saying.
It's fun to put on jeans that you couldn't get into 6 months ago.
Every morning, I look forward to getting on the scale. For anybody who's struggling with their weight, it's a godsend.
And here's the best part. Your insurance may cover 100% of the cost of your medication. So go to TryLifeMD.com to have your eligibility checked right now. Get started today at TryLifeMD.com. That's TryLifeMD.com.